And we are live. My name is Outlaw. I am your host of RNN Live. Now, why don't we have our guests introduce themselves, starting from the bottom?
With the replacement bottom.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. I don't know rap. Hello, I am an audience member. I am Pedro. Hello. It's not my real name. Why the heck would I say my real name on the internet? No.
Because Pedro is such a generic name.
Well, look, it was when I made a fake communist account for fun, and then I just kept it because I was too lazy to make another YouTube account.
Oh, so you're the guy the North Koreans were looking for.
No. No, I was trying to troll lefties, and then I was bored because they're so dumb.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you wanted to go with a more communist name, you should have just went with Pablo.
Really?
Anyways, next person.
Hi, I'm 18 Putza. I make parodies and do a couple other things, but I'll be dropping a parody soon of Batman calling his accountant. So that one should be fun. Stick around for that one.
Oh, God.
Z.
And I'm currently the broke one, trying to search for an apartment and trying to get some work done.
Currently
But instead,
fled from
I'm trapped
Argentina.
over here. What?
Currently fled from Argentina.
And I am currently, obviously, your host, and I finally have started making some money this month. So,
Don't worry. The dear leader Gavin Newsom will relieve you of that money.
anyways, hopefully
I thought he
can start
first owed
making.
that money to his parents.
Anyways, hopefully I can start making some more money and everything, so I won't have to worry about my finances. Anyways,
Yeah, but it's almost like you could have made a whole lot more money if you chose my advice that I
I am
suggested
not
months ago.
kidnapping people.
But it's so profitable.
Exactly.
What? For a few businesses, I don't recommend for the whole of society.
Anyways,
And if you want to make it even more profitable, you just kill them and sell the meat to someone who's willing to not question where that meat comes from.
Now, that's most Americans.
Okay, that's crossing a line.
That's not true. That's I still remember two hilarious things that happened in my state of Goa before we start the video. One, when they were trying to make an inspection to make sure no one was selling illegal cow meat, because this was when the government was cracking down on cows because, well, cows are sacred in India. And two things happened. You know what that is?
Wait,
Number one, a new lizard was discovered, as apparently it's been on the menu for years, but the scientific community completely missed it. Secondly, there was one place that was caught selling dog meat, which then they were in trouble. And then when they went around the second inspection, the place was selling human meat.
Oh.
Oh.
I guess they got the inspector? It would make sense.
Anyways, we have a few comments here.
Yeah. I really do look forward to listening to the stream while I do my chores around the house.
Oh,
No.
I'm glad to hear that.
I normally do my chores around the house when I'm on stream, but I don't tell Rational.
Oh,
Yes, you don't tell us, but we can hear the bacon sizzling until you melt your phone.
A man's got to eat.
You're too responsible for us misfits, Steel.
Anyways, you guys want to go talk about Chauvin's conviction before we start?
hold on. We got another
You
comment here.
forgot to say in Minecraft. No, I meant in reality, because already the FBI is gonna take if you say in Minecraft as a serious statement. So humor is fucking dead.
No, if you say in Minecraft, then the FBI has no idea what's going on.
No, not anymore. If you didn't hear about the whole report, the FBI now will take, if you like say on Twitter or Facebook in Minecraft is some horrendous thing, the FBI is recording that as your official position
Oh
of
my
what you want to
God.
do. So humor is literally fucking dead with the FBI. The FBI has to either be reformed or has to disappear like the CIA. Because it is really becoming.
Anyways, I guess we can touch it for a couple minutes for this Derek Chauvin trial. Here's my personal thoughts. Now, as far as manslaughter charges, I'm not exactly sure whether those he should have been found guilty on that or not. I would have to think about that more and look at the evidence. But as far as murder charges, no, I do not think he's a murderer. I think that is wrong for the jury to have charged him with murder.
Yeah, ironically enough, he has a good appeal case now.
Well, look, I honestly believe that Derek Chauvin both intentionally and unintentionally murdered George Floyd, because that makes sense.
Huh.
No, it doesn't. Also, if you didn't hear the news, they're already trying to sue Derek Chauvin again.
Ah, god damn it.
What are they? I don't know. What are they suing him over?
They're suing him because apparently 3 years ago he kneeled on someone else's neck also, but that person didn't fucking die. But they're just suing him for it.
Yeah. I mean, the way I go about it is there's a reason why they kind of do the kneeling thing, because they kind of done it a million fucking times and not a whole lot of people die from it. I contribute the drugs to it. I mean, yeah, he could have been negligible.
For fuck's sakes, you mean the guy who had heart problems and breathing problems?
He
was high.
He wasn't all
fucking
And took enough drugs to kill an elephant.
and also already had OD'd the previous month.
Yeah,
on a new drug that he was taking.
I'm very concerned to why I think it happened, why he got convicted, and that was mob mentality.
That's actually true. That's what I was trying to say quickly, that his appeal case has just skyrocketed in a good degree. It was better explained by some guy who showed up on the BBC, and the BBC regret their decision for letting this guy show up.
Anyways, now Pedro, were you joking or were you non-joking about your?
I was joking. I was joking to say how ridiculous the charges are, because they hit him on intentionally murdering George Floyd and also unintentionally. Like, you can't have these two things at once.
Yeah. I told you, Outlaw, not to trust him because he's just gonna make jokes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I warned you about this like 5 minutes ago.
No, we're all autistic. Just say what you want. I won't care.
Well, I was never tested, so I can't.
I thought joking around was like part of the stream.
It is.
It is, but Outlaw will ask serious questions because he doesn't understand what jokes are.
No, it's just because I'm autistic, so jokes are hard for me to understand.
That's the thing. I'm also
change my
autistic,
statement?
so I understand when I'm telling jokes, but not when someone else says.
Same here.
Oh god, you two are made for each other. But anyways, so yeah,
My only person is Yuzi.
And I regret that every other day. But that's a different story for another time. Basically, what happened was that one of the jury members, whose faces was released before, basically confirmed what we've been discussing, that they voted out of fear that they would be targeted because their face.
I don't recall hearing about this. When did this come out?
Like yesterday. Seriously,
you didn't tell me about it.
I told you this yesterday.
I don't recall you telling me.
One of the jury members basically admitted in an interview that we basically voted because we were afraid that we would be targeted.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then yes, they have a very good chance of.
That's what I was just saying. The black guy that they got on the BBC, they got this black guy. I forgot what was his name. But it was pretty clear that the BBC just got him because they thought he would go with the political messaging that they want. But then when he basically said that Derek Chauvin should not have been charged with this, George Floyd was a fucking drug addict. And now he has a good appeal. The BBC host just had this face like, I'm fired if I say anything wrong.
Okay, you gotta show me that later on because I want to see it.
I can search for it right now.
Well, anyways, so since we've gone through that, any other final thoughts before we go on to the video?
Tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I think there's a reason why Democrats heavily push the democracy narrative. Because democracy, in its true definition, is a dictatorship. One party rule, just absolutely going about. There's a reason why they call it People's Republic. Just one group controlling everything, and, well, if you can wreck the legal system just by mob opinion, then, well, got the legal system by its balls, so...
Alright, I'm going to check to see if the sound is okay, so let me know if you can hear this.
What happens when a country's government has total control over what people...
Okay. So, now, I think that that's everything. We'll go on to the video. So, for today's video, it is going to be another video from the Cavernacle, the guy everyone so much loves, and his video is titled How China is Not Ruining Your Video Games and Films Capitalism Is.
Oh. well, I'm kind of curious to hear this.
Now, let's get on with the video. Wait, why are you saying that now? We just voted on this earlier.
I know, I'm just double excited. Shut up, I'm retarded. What's your
happens when a country's government has total control over what people can play, and more importantly, when that country is currently the largest gaming market in the world. China has become far too big to ignore. Problem is, China has a really long history of censorship, people disappearing, and attention needs to be paid to Tencent, the Chinese megacorporation that owns Riot Games, has huge shares in the companies that develop PUBG and Fortnite, and as of 2018, have at least 5% stakes in both Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft. They also host several major online games in China.
You know, I'm with Dan. I'm very disappointed.
Anyways, let's get past this part and go to the
don't
Cabernet.
agree with the state, then you get, shut
Oh, it's
down.
this
So
man.
because I'm such an epic gamer, I'm going to be wearing my Snowy hat today while we talk about
Seriously?
capitalism
Oh!
ruining video games.
I get some
But
video
a
game
lot of
news after
gamers
this.
thinking China.
First off, I'm going to say one thing is that should be the obvious is capitalism made video games possible to even start with.
True. And slightly not true.
What? How?
Well, you could have them in socialism, but they would suck.
Well,
in
the
the
Soviet
Soviet
Union,
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
Soviet Union literally had its own game system. Well, technically they had two. There was the Soviet computer that people made games on in their free time, and then there was a Nintendo knockoff system, which now is an official system owned by Nintendo that only sells pretty much in Russia and the former Soviet Union itself, not so much in the Eastern Bloc.
Anyways, if you want a diversity of video games, capitalism is your best shot.
And the one thing that I wanted to say is that on the technically no portion was the whole thing that what you may consider as the first ever video game was a missile simulator. And yes, it was a video game because a bunch of military engineers just...
I'm pretty sure the first video game was Pong.
No, the first digital video game, sure, was Pong and something slightly different back then that basically had no rules and you had to put an overlay on your TV screen to play it. But anyways, no, what you may consider as the first true video game was something that was made out of plain radar equipment that a bunch of army engineers just hooked up together and made a missile simulator. So it had a little missile drawing that it followed, and you had
Well,
to
regardless of that, I don't think that had as much of an effect on video games as that just first development with Pong and then going into Pac-Man, Mr. Game & Watch.
There's a little bit of a jump between Pong and Pac-Man. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get on with the video.
China are ruining their video games. We're also going to be talking about how a lot of people in general think China are also ruining their movies. Instead, what they're not realizing is that
I mean,
all
for
these
fucking
Western
starters, you really
corporations
can't
and
criticize
companies
them, so...
are ruining and self-sabotaging their own movies creatively to appeal to the Chinese market.
Yes, to the Chinese market, but mostly to the Chinese, to the CCP, because if you don't appeal to the CCP, your video or movie can't even get into China.
Well, China's also expanding their influence a lot. It's not only with that, but you could probably see half of Africa. Later, you couldn't even sell it to, or too heavily in their influence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
to ensure they have access to the biggest market on the planet after America to make as much money as possible for their shareholders. What we're also going to get into as well is how this isn't unique to China, and that the US film industry and the game industry to a lesser extent has always censored itself and has jumped in bed with the Department of Defense and the US military industrial complex.
That's
to
a different
churn out
story.
Military.
so I guess he's going to be conflating all censorship or any single time they
Yeah.
do anything of a similar nature to just all be the same thing.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's gonna be the retarded socialist message, and I am gonna accuse him of being a socialist because he does come off as
But
that.
he is a
half the time.
socialist.
Yeah, he's a commie.
I know, but I just gonna say it in general, even if he wasn't, because I consider calling someone a socialist an insult. But anyways,
Oh, okay.
what was I trying to say? The whole difference between China and the U.S. military is that even if it's something that goes against something that the U.S. military wanted, they may still fund you and lend lease some vehicles for your film or so on. I mean, I can give a good example with an old 50s film called not Down Under, Down Below. Fuck, what was it called? I now forgot it. Anyways,
Periscope?
no, 50s. Down Periscope was goddamn 90s. But anyways,
Well, you kept saying down something, and that's the name that came to me.
The Enemy Beneath, The Enemy Below, something like that. I'll find it in a moment, but I'll just say what it is. So this is at a time where, they got a U.S. destroyer for the film, of course, on aid from the U.S. military Navy, and had the whole message with help from the U.S. Navy for these and these shots. The main thing that was exceptional about the film, aside from the effects, was the acting, because the other semi-neutral character was the U-boat captain. And at that point, a lot of films were semi-risky to show any form of Germans as the good guy. Or decent, because the U-boat captain, not really a fan of the Nazis, but just doing it out of country service, basically. So even though this went against what was popular at the time for Hollywood to do, and is even more popular now, but anyways, the U.S. Navy still funded part of the film and let them use their ship.
Well, even regardless as to whether they are let to use the ship, that isn't censorship if they don't let them, because
They're just persuading their help from making a film rather than just outright putting a boot to somebody's head. Or
So yeah, it's not the same kind of comparison, which doesn't make it's not a good comparison.
I mean,
The Enemy Below, that's the film.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, just
highly recommend it.
Go on. But just kind of take something like, I don't know, take the Cuties film, all right? Some people won't make it even if you're legally allowed to make it, because you're going to get social backlash for saying a certain kind of message. And so some people just pull their punches.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is,
that's the thing though with Cuties is a ton of websites and news organizations were trying to defend it.
Yeah.
Despite the backlash.
Yeah.
If the New York Post, if you're against the pedo movie, you're right wing.
Hey, even being against body odor makes you right wing.
And then you get the libertarians also defending it, which is just fucking retarded.
Well, actually, it's not. Actually, it's technically called ephemophilia. Okay.
I honestly don't hear that in too many libertarian circles. It's just is it like
it's more of the liberal libertarians, like Reason Magazine.
Yeah, or ANCAPs.
No, ANCAPs I think are usually not the liberal kind. Usually, I don't think they defend it. I haven't seen really any ANCAPs defending it.
I don't know. I'm on the Christian libertarian side, so I don't know.
Oh.
What I've seen is the Reason magazine types and the Libertarian Party types defending it. That's the thing I've seen. Yeah, like the Libertarian Party is just controlled by the liberal libertarians, and they don't give a shit about the more conservative libertarians.
Well, yeah, but also too, a lot of the more conservative libertarians are in the GOP now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One thing that I remember being retarded when the Cuties film came out was that they kept comparing it to this one other film. I forgot what it was, but it's basically, I understood it, it's a guy who's down on his luck within crime circles, and he's trying to help himself, and basically there was an actress who was 14 at the time, I think she plays like a 13-year-old girl in the film, who is an underage prostitute. And they try to make a comparison of the two films, when basically just an overall look you can see, okay, so one is a girl who is a reason why he's trying to change his life around and also trying to help her, and she doesn't really do anything grossly sexual in the film. They don't force her to do anything like that. None of that is involved. We just know that her profession has been an underage prostitute, and a shady side of. Can't remember if the film takes place in the US or England, either one. And the other one is literally having what was it, below 13-year-olds.
Yeah, they
Sexually
showed an underage boob on screen.
Ah, fuck.
Yeah, unobstructed.
I'm
Not
surprised
censored.
that you didn't mention the toilet scene.
Because I don't want to.
Anyways, let's
I'm
go
putting
on.
you in an awkward position.
Propaganda. One of the best examples of that would, of course, be Top Gun. So we're going to be talking about Activision, Blizzard, Tencent, and the Communist Party censors in China, and just talk about how, once again, gamers' anger seems to be misdirected at China rather than Western corporations. Now, before we go any further...
The only problem with his statement there is that it's actually directed at both, really.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't tell which gamer really likes the main company. Like, how many of us actually like Ubisoft alone? Or EA alone? And not like the companies that they own now, which are slowly dying out because of their stupid actions.
Yeah, it's...
I'm asking Pedro over here. Pedro and Putza. I'm expecting one of them to answer something.
No,
Wait,
no,
what did you
yeah,
ask me?
I was kind of distracted on something.
Exactly.
Anyways.
Came up at my
Both of
house.
you fucking failed.
Anyways, as far as who gets the blame, technically, I don't think anyone is just blaming China. They're also blaming the large corporations because it's their fault too, yes, because they just cave in.
Yeah.
You
Well,
are an instrument of China. There is no differentiation. Therefore, it's China.
yeah. Well, another thing is just because of globalism and everything, we're more interconnected together, and the West isn't the main hegemony of producing and exporting anymore. The world just heavily relied on China, and then particularly in the film industry, well, foreign and particularly China makes and breaks many different companies. For instance, if you take the Fast and Furious films, I think they make like some absurd, like $700 million.
Oh yeah, they make
Like,
a lot in China.
Yeah, they don't make a whole lot in the U.S., but they make a whole lot in foreign countries abroad, and
Especially Transformers. And then I remember one hilarious joke was from a Chinese person who said, "Yeah, in China we don't like these films." And it's like, are you sure about that? Because these films really make or break if they fail in the Western world.
Yeah,
And you want to know what's kind of ironic?
sure.
They could make the same amount of profits with India. They just don't. And in India, honestly, people just don't give a shit. I mean, if you pander to India with an Indian actress, okay, that's good enough. You don't need to say India is so good and all of that. Honestly, I can
Funny
say...
enough, the WWE tried that with Ginger Mahal, but story for another day.
But yeah, it still baffles me that we focus on China instead of India as an alternative market if we must need the big crowd. And in India, unfortunately, there is still censorship, but it's more for cultural reasons. And sometimes it gets very stupid. Such as like every English film that's shown in an Indian cinema, especially in Inox, which is the main brand of cinemas over there, they have English subtitles to them, which is a bit weird. But then the subtitles blur out the words like fuck or shit. So they don't censor the film itself, but they censor the subtitles that are added to the film.
Wait, why not? If they're the ones adding the subtitles, why wouldn't they just remove those words
I don't know.
or edit
Because
them?
it's retarded. That's it.
I know it's retarded censorship, but at most where your film in India would be heavily censored is on television, but the cinemas are free game.
It's a similar thing which you will see with sometimes with some YouTubers who have the captions. Their caption words are censored, but when they say the word, it's not censored.
For Ben Shapiro, while reading out WAP, saying "wet ass p word," so that he
Well, at
can
least
stay
he censors his
monetized.
thing. He's not inconsistent on that.
I mean, what I guess I'll just try to summarize what we've been saying. I think there's a difference between political censorship and tyrannical censorship, and the reasons why both companies are going about. So, partially the world's just too interconnected, and the other part is most people are just inherently pussies, but I don't know what extent that capitalism plays in it. Capitalism.
Hello?
Human nature itself.
I think your mic cut out.
Hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
We can all
anyways,
hear
let's
you.
go on with the video because we barely got it started.
Yes.
Recently,
Right on
YouTube demonetized my entire channel, supposedly for bullying. What had actually happened is I'd been mass flagged by some community or some fans. Thankfully, after bigger creators like the Humanist Report, the Serfs, Carl Kalinsky, and Wowshi retweeted
So the whole
the tweet, YouTube
shebang
went back
of
on its
shitty
policies,
people
but it showed
helped
me
you
how
out.
fragile this is as a source
I
of
mean,
income.
in a way, I'm kind of glad to see that he got his channel back.
I'm not
I don't
denying
like
that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it's just they're not still not good people either way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's a communist. You know, why would he need why would he need to be running a business right here? He's not a worker.
So if you want to support my work continuing for the future, regardless
Anyways,
of what
let's fast
YouTube
forward.
do, just a quick side note about Activision Blizzard. The top guy at Activision, Bobby Kotick, makes so much money every single year, barely pays any tax. Activision Blizzard itself doesn't actually pay much tax, and it actually gets tax credits, meaning if you're American, your taxes are funding Call of Duty, with many entries essentially acting as
Wait, that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure no taxes don't go to video games. I'm pretty sure. I think it's just they don't get taxed. That's
Can
it.
we pass a bill funding Call of Duty with taxpayer dollars?
Oh, hell no.
I don't
That
know
would
because
just
it
be
still
fucking
have a very
awful.
it would still have a shitty script and maybe an okay, decent story, shitty multiplayer. I mean,
Mhm.
I will not. I will stand for giving our country money to commit atrocities, but I will not stand for it for a bad Call of Duty game.
Oh, speaking of, did you all hear about Biden's new statement, which I actually support because
No.
it's something that Barack Obama refused to do.
What do you
What's
do?
that?
What do you do?
Biden acknowledged the Armenian genocide, which Barack Obama never did in his 8 years, and it's pissing off the Turks. And going to Biden's Twitter account is actually entertaining right now, seeing all the fucking Turks freak out. I haven't seen this many pissed off Turks ever since I took part in a small Twitter campaign where we just insulted Turkish people by calling Istanbul Constantinople because they fucking hate that. And I still prefer that Constantinople is a much better name.
It is a much fucking better name.
Look,
And we're gonna get a lot of
would
Turkish
look,
comments.
Turkey would be Christian if the British weren't a bunch of spazzes, freaking out at Tsar Alexander. But yeah,
Fuck, my mic fucking dropped.
Conservative propaganda. Now, with both Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft, they are owned in part by a Chinese company called Tencent, but we're going to get back to that later because I believe a massive emphasis is put on them for certain issues which they don't entirely deserve. So Activision Blizzard's most notorious controversy involving China lately has come from a Hearthstone tournament where one of the players who won expressed his solidarity for Hong Kong.
你就讲完那8个字，然后导播我们就结束，我们就
对
什么也都不要聊了，然后你随时可以开始，头先低下来。
光复香港，时代革命。
导播可以切回来。
Still love
导播
that
谢谢
moment. It's a very
好
good
好
moment.
可以了这样可以吧？好。
This was during the height of the Hong Kong protests. Now, he was kicked out of the Hearthstone competitive scene. He lost his winnings for that. The two people who were commentating also had a suspension on commentating just for being there. Now, Activision Blizzard came out and defended themselves with a really, really like half-hearted apology, didn't really address the issue, and basically said, we don't accept anyone to make political statements, you know, regardless of what they are, and these statements are alleged to have offended loads and loads of Chinese people.
You know,
I mean, the
Blizzard
thing is that
had
they
the
do.
opportunity
Like,
to...
for instance, I think it was at some kind of tournament or something, but this homosexual, this gay man was just starting to hate on Republicans and shit. And they didn't ban or kick them off.
I don't think he's defending the Blizzard. He's trying to say that... I think he's trying to say that Blizzard is the reason for the censorship.
I see.
Which is...
which is both stupid and half true, because it's also... It just comes down to that any true gamer really fucking hates these companies. Like Activision, I think I haven't bought in a single game from them in close to 15 years now. Yeah,
Anyways,
actually, it might be more than 15 years.
Anyways, it seems like it's probably just going to be a repeat of arguments. Do we want to continue, or we can go on to the George Soros video?
Well, we could.
George Soros.
We can maybe just skip like to halfway in the video and just see if it changes.
Okay.
The insurance group Anbang, Wu Zhaohe, was sentenced to 18 years in jail for fraud. Yet the high priority that has been given to becoming a leader in the new tech, in loss of jobs, prompted the new mantra of advance of the state, retreat this party and the Chinese system. We tie it to companies like Tencent, which the state in China is also suspicious of, and companies like Tencent also exist to make as much money as possible. Just because it's from a country ruled by a communist party doesn't mean it can't be for profit. Tencent isn't majority
Of course it's for
owned by the
fucking profit.
Chinese.
The CCP is broke. I mean, okay, let's just take the
Well,
whole
it's for
thing
profit to the extent that as long as it doesn't say anything against the CCP, they'll let it live.
Let me explain it like this. We all like to think that our federal governments are fucking shit at spending money, as we can see with the US right now, or Germany wanting to take up every other humanitarian... I mean, for fuck's sakes, when Donald Trump reduced the pay to the
Get
UN...
to the point, Val. Just
China is the worst situation, because literally the only thing that China spends a shit ton of money on is themselves, as in the CCP heads, both living and dead, weirdly enough. And none of them refuse to reduce their pay, even though they are on par with the amount of earnings. You know, they reached a point where even if they like blew $100 million a day, they will never run out of that cash till the point that they die. And it's only getting worse with every other situation. So yes, Tencent is out to make money, but that's because they need money to a desperate degree. It's kind of like someone give me a name of a famous celebrity who couldn't stop spending money on cocaine. I need this
Robbie Downey Jr.?
No, he gave up.
Hunter
No,
Biden.
wait. I said cocaine, I didn't say kids.
Oh,
But he got kicked out of the military over cocaine.
Anyways, but yeah, so yeah, the Tencent, every other Chinese company is full on desperate to make money for the cheap because they need the money desperately. So it's not just because they are a company, it's because they are one of the more legal ways the CCP can make their money. Because, like, let's take all of the Chinese knockoff products, you know, like toys. Every year, it gets harder for China to sell those products for two reasons. And you know what those two reasons are?
Because they look like crap?
No. Reason number one, more children are playing games. Even in India, that's becoming the situation as multiple things become cheaper and so on. So that's one good reason.
I mean, that's an economy I'm going to be looking at with great interest.
Okay. And secondly, because every other nation fucking hates China and they're straight up just slowly removing products or basically shipping crates that don't come with an official branded product from China, such as, like, you know, instead of getting a crate of miscellaneous toys as they used to do, if it doesn't come with a certain brand that officially puts their name to it to a certain degree and it's on the official register, it just gets thrown out or sent back. So now that method isn't working anymore.
It's kind of interesting. Like, a lot of people want Chinese money, but they don't want to live under Chinese rule.
Yeah, but that's the irony. They don't make any money.
Yeah.
No, they just buff up their GDP with government spending.
Well, it's kind of a strange way to trying to explain what their economy is. But, like, honestly, one of the most best and simplistic ways is trade's free, people's not. And it's kind of a very technocratic way of going about managing their resources, because I feel like there's still elements of communism in it. It's just sort of a more practical way to actually use it, rather than just a very ridiculous Stalinist way of going about it. Like,
yeah, they've been Mussolini pilled for a while now.
Even though the tragedy is of China's closed economy that when you crash hard, you crash really fucking hard. And that happened to China on November 3rd, 2019. No, wait, 2020.
But
if you don't get
Corona.
No, not Corona. It had to do with weirdly enough, it looks like the election of Joe Biden.
What?
Basically, I'll finish this if you don't interrupt. Basically, their currency has been going lower in value as everyone else's has been at the start of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But then something happened on November 3rd. I still haven't been able to find out why, but their currency crashed and it only became 7% of its value on November 2nd. And it's only regained like 3 to 4% of its value back. So literally since November 3rd, 2020, the Chinese yuan has been over 90% less in value than what it was on November 2nd. It's really the situation where now they are also partially desperate to get the US dollar, because that's an easy way to get a lot of money into this closed system where inflation partially works as normal. I do not know how to explain Chinese currency inflation because that gets complicated. But
their money is fake.
I just wanted to touch one thing, Val. I looked at the two video clips you sent me. Neither of them were jurors saying that they felt pressured to vote guilty.
That's not okay. Then
it was anonymous.
Okay, then it's not the case. I'm just searching what I can quickly send on YouTube. I didn't even watch the videos. I just
there was a Tim Pool video, and I believe Tim Pool explicitly.
Okay, then I'll have to search for Tim Pool, because if I try to search anything on YouTube to try to help me with this, let's see the sources: USA Today, CBSC, CNN, CBSC, Good Morning America, Law and Crime Network, whatever that is, Care 11, NBC,
yeah.
CBS. You get the point. Okay,
I need
so
an app to get rid of them, so I don't see them in the results.
Anyways, so I think we've touched everything now. So why don't we go on to the next video? Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the video that you want.
Hold on, Albert. One person at a time. So Pedro.
Tabernacle is just a boring Vosh.
Okay. Putza?
He's not nuanced enough to handle these issues.
Alright, and Z?
What am I supposed to say? I'm gonna accuse him of being an English colonizer.
Well, he's Irish and he hates the English, so
I have my doubts because he sounds more English than Irish to me. And considering
he says
that
he's Irish.
Yes, and a lot of Twitter communists call themselves communists, but then cry when their $1,000 phone gets a crack. So saying you're one thing doesn't exactly mean that you're it. If that makes sense.
Anyways, let's go on to the George Soros. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yes, and we already know that you wanted to play this video from the start.
Yes, I know.
Oh, it looks like my bank account just went to 0.
God damn it.
Hey, it's good to know that all of my
And even wrote books to
account
try.
value is in V-Bucks.
All right, so are we ready?
Someone has clearly watched the video beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we get started, two things. One, this video is sponsored by the new
Yeah, I don't give a crap.
website for the Open Society Foundation. If I search
I'm
him
jealous.
on
He
Google,
has sponsors.
and why is he such a controversial figure? Well, if I search him on Google, I quickly find this website for the Open Society Foundations, which is an organization that seems to be doing good for the world. Quote, under George Soros's leadership, the Open Society Foundations support individuals and organizations across the globe fighting for freedom of expression, accountable government, and societies that promote justice and equality. Okay. And also, over the years, Soros has given away an estimated 64% of his entire wealth. Well, that all sounds good to me. He sounds like a good lad.
Soros ran it. He corrupted FBI officials. He corrupted foreign service officers. And the bottom line is this:
Don't tell me this whole
Soros
fucking video
wants
is
to
just gonna
run
be
Ukraine,
him reading
and
what
he's
George
doing
Soros calls
everything he
himself.
can to use every lever of the United States government to make that happen for business interests, not for good government.
And I just want to tell Soros this: you need to die. I'm not gonna kill you. I don't want anybody, because I don't want to turn you into a martyr. I'm saying you're gonna burn in hell.
Oh. Oh. Bikes.
It's a universe of your own creation, jerk. I just want the world to know that you are to blame. How's that sound?
If you're wondering why so many people are being robbed, raped, and killed in American cities right now, George Soros is part of the reason for that.
As you may know, the 85-year-old billionaire is a far-left fanatic whose Open Society organization advocates no borders anywhere in the world. But now we have a far-left individual, Soros, bent on harming Israel, America's strongest ally in the Middle East.
George Soros, I don't care if he's Jewish, Catholic, or atheist. I don't care if he's young or old. I don't care if he's male, female, or none of the above. What I care about is the content of his character, and he has none.
George Soros?
Okay, dang. Maybe he's actually evil. Well, I did a lot of research about George Soros.
George Soros!
I even read a couple books about him. And here is what I found out. Let's go back to the beginning. George Soros was born in Budapest, Hungary on August 12, 1930. Well, actually, back then he was named Georgi Swartz, but his dad changed his name to make it sound less Jewish. In fact, he had his whole family change their names. Supposedly, his dad chose Soros as their last name since he was really into the Esperanto language, and Sori means to soar in Esperanto. George learned Esperanto himself growing up. Soros also means, quote, next in line in Hungarian. So anyway, the name change was due to a sharp rise in anti-Semitism in Hungary during the 1930s. After the Nazis occupied Hungary in March 1944, they prohibited Jewish children from going to school and forced them to work. George and his family probably avoided being sent to concentration camps by buying documents that said they were Christians. His family was fairly well off and had connections, so they were able to do such a thing. When George was 14, he began pretending to be the Christian godson of a Hungarian government official named Bambach, who himself had a Jewish wife in hiding. One time, he brought George with him while he completed an inventory of a Jewish family's confiscated estate. More about this later. After the Allies defeated the Nazis, the Soviet Union eventually took control of Hungary, and George Soros didn't like their control of his country much better. Sure, he and his family didn't have to pretend to be Christian anymore, but after getting in trouble for writing the word amen in a newspaper he helped make with his father, he looked to get out of Hungary. By 1947, Soros had his heart set on England, and he soon moved there. He worked menial jobs while trying to get into college. Apparently, sometimes he would stand at Speaker's Corner in London lecturing about how awesome internationalism was and how stupid nationalism was. Oh, and doing it in Esperanto. Esperanto, of course. While he was great at speaking Esperanto, he sucked at English and failed his English exam. However, 2 years later, he passed his exams and enrolled in the London School of Economics. In school, Soros did pretty well and finished his regular studies a year early. By that time, he had become heavily influenced by the writings of the great philosopher Karl Popper. Fortunately for George, he got Popper as his tutor his final year in school. Popper's big theory was that essentially nothing can be known with absolute certainty, so the default should always be a more open society with lots of different ideas for a better understanding. Well,
Yeah, that's actually
George
smart.
ate it all up. Popper would be a big influence on George's endeavors for decades afterward. Soros got a Master of Science in Philosophy in 1954 at the London School of Economics. Eventually, he'd go back and get a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of London. Still, right out of college, he didn't find success, nor have connections. He had a hard time even getting a job at any bank, apparently, but eventually finally landed one at Singer and Friedlander after writing to, quote, every manager director in every merchant bank in London. Oh, and he only got that job probably because one of the managing directors there was Hungarian. Soros started out as a clerk but worked his way up to arbitrage, which is basically buying and selling assets in different markets since the same assets can have differing prices in different markets. Well, Soros got pretty good at this and in 1956 moved to New York City working as an arbitrage trader for the firm F.M. Meyer. 3 years later, he began working at another firm, Wertheim and Company. It was around this time he began a relationship with a woman named Anneliese Witzchak. The two married in 1960 and eventually would have 3 children together, Robert, Andrea, and Jonathan. At Wertheim and Company, Soros worked as an analyst of European securities. It was during this time that he developed the theory of reflexivity in markets, which basically says that markets can be irrational. Investors don't base their decisions on reality, but instead on their perceptions of reality. Soros
Touché.
began at
I mean, that
another
is actually
firm,
quite true.
Arnold and S. Blackroder, in 1963, now as a vice president. In his first few years there, he was more about working on his philosophy dissertation than making money. However, in 1966, the firm let him experiment with a fund of $100,000, and the account performed well. Because of its success, the firm let him manage a small investment fund called the First Eagle Fund. In 1969, he used $4 million to set up a hedge fund named Double Eagle Fund.
Wait, stop right there. What the heck are hedge funds?
Well, hedge funds are complicated and kind of boring, but boy, can they make investors lots of freaking money. Soros was relatively early to this game, although hedge funds had been around a couple decades. Basically, hedge funds are investments with client money in alternative investments to either beat a market or provide a hedge against unforeseen market changes. Because all the money is pooled together in a big fund and there are less regulations with what to do with the money, they can invest more aggressively so that everyone potentially makes lots more money. Soros learned to do this.
Well, still saying there's not much to comment right so far, so we're just watching just to, get context.
Yeah, we're just watching Soros make it rain.
Well, in 1973, the Double Eagle Fund had $12 million. At that time, Soros decided to leave Arnold and S. Blackroder and start his own hedge fund called the Soros Fund, together with his friend Jim Rogers. By the time they renamed it the Quantum Fund, it had grown to be around $12 million. That was in 1978. Meanwhile, by this time, Soros had decided that it wasn't enough to make a bunch of money. He also wanted wanted to give it all away. Now that he had a small fortune, he established the Open Society Fund in 1979. He began to work toward his mission of a more, quote, open society. One place he looked to help was South Africa, which still had a system of racial segregation simply known as apartheid. He was sneaky with how he wanted to end apartheid. He believed it started with education and began
I
giving
wonder how
out
bad the apartheid
scholarships to
system
help
was actually
black
at,
students
was at
attend.
that point. Because I know, like, especially before, like, the Boer War, it may have been after the Boer War, it was like a precursor to essentially Nazism, how bad they were treating the African population in South Africa. Anyway, I just don't know how bad it was at this point, so I don't know how much I can project he helped or may not helped or exploited, so...
All I know is that probably Africa's worse, or South Africa's worse off now than it was before.
Yeah. Well, that's because it was taken over by communists and not capitalists.
And plus they kicked out all the whites. I'm kidding.
No, the whites are still there.
And basically, they still, in some sense, they still have, well, racial segregation of some sort.
They have sort of an ethnic socialism when they want to go kick out the white farmers and essentially redistribute their land. But the problem is, as soon as that happened, all the investors, all the businesses are going to go pull the fuck out, and it's going to leave South Africa in even more of a desperate state. So,
well, that was the thing, though. So what happened is the ANC basically compensated all of the South African farmers who had basically stolen lands, and they gave it to they gave it to black South Africans, and the black South Africans didn't want to farm because to them farming was lame, so they just sold it back to the white people. And got rich. So basically that's what happened, and now the EFF, who's essentially South Africa's Nazi party, like Malema's basically Hitler, is basically talking about how it's all stolen land and we have to take it back.
I would change it from Nazi party to Trotsky-like party because, well, their main image that they like to use is Lenin. So.
Oh, they can be an asshole.
Yeah, but Nazis are commies, so, you know.
Anyways,
they're just doing race-based socialism, and Friedrich Engels talked about how important, essentially, the race-based socialism was anyway. So it still fits.
Well, anyways, let's continue.
College there. In 1981, the Quantum Fund was now worth almost $400 million, and now Soros had a personal fortune of $100 million. In June of that year, one journalist declared him, quote, the world's greatest money manager. But by the end of 1981, after a 22% market drop in value, combined with lots of folks cashing out, it was only worth $200 million. It didn't faze Soros a bit. For the rest of the decade, he would consistently gamble aggressively with his assets. As his ambitions grew, his marriage with Annalise suffered. The two divorced in 1983, and soon after, he married a historian named Susan Weber. George would have two more children with Susan, Alexander and Gregory. In the late 1980s, Soros began betting against currencies. He made hundreds of millions of dollars shorting the US dollar. By 1987, Soros was well known to investors around the world. That year, Fortune magazine ran a cover story about him that said he might just be better than Warren Buffett.
Hey, can we read some of the comments real quick?
Yep, things were going great.
Yeah, there's a really... can we read some of the comments real quick? There's a really funny one.
Which one?
This is the longest we've ever been quiet.
I've already responded to that one.
Yeah. Oh.
You're not paying attention, Pizza.
Occasionally. I'm in my own
That's because he's just doing history stuff.
Let's continue.
in 1987 until they weren't. You see, Soros bet wrong when the stock market crashed, and ultimately his entire fund had gone down 10%. But again, Soros stayed aggressive, making it all back by the end of the year. Meanwhile, Soros had begun giving his Open Society Fund money away to political stuff, funding dissident movements behind the Iron Curtain, like back in his home country of Hungary, and in Poland, and even in Soviet Russia. He also secretly funded dissident movements in China. Not all of these movements he funded were successful. In 1989, Soros got into some trouble with insider trading, but wouldn't be punished for it until many years later. In the 1990s, the name George Soros became much more familiar to many people around the world. In September 1992, he made about $1 billion betting against, or shorting, the United Kingdom's currency, the pound. On September 16th, 1992, a day called Black Wednesday, the United Kingdom's treasury quickly lost billions in reserves, which forced the pound out of the European exchange rate mechanism. This greatly devalued the pound. While many suffered, Soros came out big and made headlines around the world. One journalist called him, quote, the man who broke the Bank of England. In the following years, Soros continued to make more billions betting against currencies in Finland, Thailand, Japan, and Malaysia, among other countries.
I mean, I can only
during the
project
Asian
that he
financial
had only
crisis,
two reasons. He was really good at predicting market forces and this was going to collapse, or he just had inside information.
Well, when you have enough money to, already bribing someone, let's say 2 million from the billion that you've made, certainly would be convincing to someone at the time.
Yep.
Let's say it's kind of like the whole story about the Iraqi family who squealed on where Saddam Hussein's sons were hiding.
Uh-huh.
Because do you know about this Iraqi family? I can't pronounce their names, so I'm not even going to bother.
Well, I know about some of his family members.
They all appeared in the United States later with like $20 million or something.
More like $80 million, but close enough.
Oh, okay.
That was the whole thing. Like, oh, he squealed on them, and then he like disappeared for 3 months from Iraq, and then suddenly shows up in the United States, a fucking millionaire. I could totally see something smaller happening with Joe Biden, not Joe Biden, Joe Soros. Fuck all of these damn names I have to remember.
Yeah, if I just knew more about George Soros, I can comment a bit more. I just try to stay away from the Alex Joneses. Like there's a lot of stuff that sounds conspiratorial, but like isn't, and especially the more you dive into it, kind of like the U.S. colleges just running essentially a very large scam and screwing a lot of people over with the loans and everything. But I try to stay away from this stuff because if you dig too deep, you're going to find some really out there zany shit. And every single time I do, generally George Soros name's attached to it. So that's partially why I've tried to avoid the guy.
I was told on oh, sorry, Z.
Yeah, no, the main issue with Joe Soros is that he's had, as we can see, he's basically had his hand in everything. And it's very difficult to track which one is real and which one is fake. And sometimes it's just because he funded one thing, which he wound up funding something else. So sometimes he is connected to something unintentionally, but he is still connected to it in a big way.
Isn't there also some stuff with some of those poorer countries? He flooded the market with their currency.
I don't know about that.
I can't remember.
Maybe it's mentioned in this video, or maybe it's not, or maybe you're mixing it up with someone else. But if you want the man who's at like the very top of the public list, where you can find someone who's done a lot of shady and shitty stuff that is having massive repercussions for us now, Joe Soros is the guy. Like I said, if I have to look into Europe alone, the short list of things that I can give you of what he's responsible for is massive quote-unquote open programs in Europe, which involves such things as gender studies being flooded to our universities. Hell, there was a reason as dictatorial the Hungarian government acts, there's a reason why they personally went after George Soros's personal university over there, because it is a fucking shit show of just promoting like wannabe socialists as the ideal way of living. And then there's all of the NGOs that he funds in the Mediterranean. Like, if you want the most basic scam right now, it is $10,000 a month sent to some organization in Libya and in a couple other countries in North Africa. I think Morocco is also part of it. Then they use that money for float boats, and then they drive to the middle of the Mediterranean, meet up with an NGO boat which is partially sponsored by George Soros. They sink their floatable boats, get picked up by the NGO, brought into Europe, and then repeat the cycle. And it's getting ever more annoying.
Anyways, let's continue.
Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad accused Soros of using his wealth to punish the Association of Southeast Asian Nations since they let Myanmar in as a member.
Dr. Mahathir suggested yesterday to ban currency trading. But this is such an inappropriate suggestion that it doesn't deserve serious consideration. Interfering with the convertibility of capital at a moment like this is a recipe for disaster. Dr. Mahathir is a menace to his own country.
Mahathir implied that Soros was causing the financial crisis as part of a larger Jewish conspiracy. Mahathir later apologized, but others would argue similar criticisms toward Soros in the coming years as his wealth continued to grow. Meanwhile, he kept giving his wealth away. In the 1990s, he gave around $50 million of his own money to help victims of the Bosnian War. In April 1993, he founded the Open Society Institute, which is now called Open Society Foundations and is still in operation. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Soros funneled tens of millions through the Open Society Institute to former Soviet satellite countries to promote organizations that taught the virtues of democracy and capitalism. He soon got new enemies after doing this, like the Hungarian nationalist politician István Shurka.
He's giving the what?
He's trying to get in there early, try to monopolize it before anyone else can. Didn't he say it was like one of the first ones to do it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Who also promoted anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Soros. By the 2000s, Soros had set his eyes to the criminal justice system in the United States. He had long been against the war on drugs, believing that drug addiction was a medical issue and shouldn't be a criminal issue. He started funneling money to reforming drug law enforcement in Baltimore, Maryland, but success there was slow. By 2004, Soros was thinking much bigger. 2004 was another important year in the life of George Soros. George! After all. But in 2004, Soros was afraid of the direction that George W. Bush was taking not only the United States, but the entire world due to his so-called war on terror and the Iraq War. So for the first time, Soros picked a side in American politics, donating millions to defeat Bush. Soros also publicly trashed
It's a little
Bush's
off topic,
foreign
but can I ask a question? Okay. I've heard kind of the theory that the entire war on terrorists was in reality to preserve European oil interests. Like, what do you think about that?
No.
I have no clue, because I just know that we got screwed the shit out of. So even if that is true, we got the bad end of the fucking deal.
Well, I would say no, because the war on terror was, although it's obviously, it went on way too long. I can understand getting into it to start, but we've been in there way too long, and it's been worthless.
Because I was talking to a friend, and he said if the Middle East oil interest wasn't secured, and that means that the only viable place that Europe can get oil from is Russia. Or
well, they can also get it from the United States.
Yes, but that could cause.
Yeah, but that's bad for the environment. People with no regulations need to drill.
Yeah. I mean, we are more oil dependent now. But I was heard that was like a lot of diplomats on their mind. The U.S. at the time wasn't oil self-sufficient, so to secure that oil fields in the Middle East would help Europe's interest. So I've been told.
Yeah, but I really do not think that was the reason for it. I purely think it was just because they legitimately thought that there was nuclear bombs that they had and everything. Because according to other sources, that's what Bush thought it was. He wasn't lying.
To be fair, I don't deny the fact that Saddam Hussein would have definitely looked into nuclear weapons. I just doubt that he had even the capabilities of making them.
Mm-hmm.
And partially that he was... Go ahead.
But there's also the very likely possibility that he could have gone to the much more devastating option.
Genocide?
No, dirty bombs.
Oh.
Basically, equip a standard bomb or missile just with radioactive substance to spread out over an area. That's 10 times more devastating than an actual nuclear bomb going off.
Anyways, let's continue.
Policy. This was when a lot of American conservatives started to hate him. Soros also later spent millions trying to defeat Donald Trump in both the 2016 and 2020 election, but it wasn't just presidential elections. Ever since 2004, Soros has poured tens of millions of dollars into local and state elections, almost always supporting the Democratic Party candidates. Meanwhile, Soros continued to donate tens of millions more to various causes such as racial justice, immigration reform, expanding internet access, feeding and immunizing those in poverty, and establishing universities. In 2005, he and his second wife, Susan Weber, divorced. For the next several years, he had a few girlfriends that were much younger than him. In 2013, he married his third and current wife, Tamiko Bolton. He was 83, she was 41. That same year, the Quantum Fund made $5.5 billion, making it the most successful hedge fund in history. To date, the fund has generated over $40 billion. Today, George Soros is 90 years old. Despite giving away most of his money, he still has a net worth of more than $8.6 billion,
I wonder how much
making him
money he
still
actually
one of
gave
the richest.
away.
I think they said around 60% of his income.
Yeah, but was it to charity or was it to his political activism organization?
I think multiple sources. Charity, political activism. I think it was a mixture.
Richest people in the world. George Soros is also one of the most hated men in the world.
George Soros!
Some of the comments that led to all of this.
Could we just go back to the
Of course,
comments
there
and
are
read
the
some?
anti-Semitic
No,
conspiracy
that's a waste of
theories
time.
that go back to the
No,
1990s
let's go over the
when
comments.
Eastern European
Nope.
nationalist leaders attacked him
Let's ask
because
our
he
two
spent
guests over
millions
here.
against them. You can't deny the anti-Semitism related to the hate of him, especially when you hear the fact that he is Jewish, brought up all the time. Interestingly, Soros also gets crap from Jewish folks too, since he has consistently criticized the Israeli government. And then, of course, supporting politicians across the world is going to get you haters from people who, you know, don't like those politicians. Sure, he
It seems
may
like the
have used to
countries
be a
that hate him
moderate
the
dude.
most had their economies wrecked or some kind of grievances that caused it.
Politically, but today it's pretty clear his causes are way on the left end of the spectrum, which is why folks like Glenn Beck have consistently attacked him over the years. Oh, and I can tell you that there's this one interview in particular that has not aged well. Stephen Croft interviewed him for 60 Minutes back in 1998. At first glance, Soros kind of comes across as a sociopath, feeling no remorse for apparently helping to take away Jewish property, even though by this time he clearly knew the Nazis were responsible and he was going along with it.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all.
And
Maybe
then
as
the
a child, you don't see the connection but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. There was no sense that I shouldn't be there. Well, actually, funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. And it was whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator, the property was being taken away. So I had no role in taking away that property.
Yeah.
How can you still be an apologist after this? Like, showing this on your video, and it's like, guys, he's not evil, I swear.
Well, even if regardless as to whether he felt guilt, he technically did not have to do that. He could have done other things.
Also, keep in mind, he was trying to argue that he was a kid and you don't make these connections. He was born in fucking 1930. This was 1944. He's 14.
Yeah, he was 14.
At that point, you would have some mental sanity to understand. Hey, why are these people crying? Why are they being taken away by men with guns and scary uniforms?
I mean, I don't know though as much, because you were getting things by like 8-year-olds on 9/11, where they were posting on social media that they wish that the planes hit their school so they wouldn't have to go to school.
Oh, yeah, I remember. No, but everyone has that.
I mean, that's a weird way he worded that. If I wasn't there, somebody else would have done it. Jesus Christ, man.
If I wasn't doing that, someone else would have been.
If I wasn't killing them, someone else would have killed them.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's just a very awkward response. I mean, I'm sure there's more context, but Christ, man, no guilt at all, especially when you have the hindsight that you do now.
Well, I don't know if you could have more context to that, because even let's say he doesn't feel guilty about it and all that, he didn't have to do that. Like, I'm pretty sure there's other things he could have done that weren't taking away people's property and everything like that. I'm pretty sure there are a bunch of other things he could have done.
I mean, yeah, he said that he was just there on his own volition as a spectator, right? I believe he said that.
No, he said he was a spectator, but he was a part of it.
I see.
He calls himself a spectator because he says, if I didn't do it, someone else would be doing it. That's a bad excuse. Because even if someone else was going to be doing it, you don't have to do it.
What's the statute of limitations on this?
I mean, that's
no way
probably...
that's legal.
If you are German, there is no statute of limitations.
Yeah, but he's a Hungarian.
Anyways, let's continue.
At the very least, Soros comes across as pretty insensitive in this interview, so many Soros haters point to this clip. But if you go back and watch it again, Soros never said he confiscated any Jewish property.
I had no role in taking away that property.
He was probably just brought along. Plus, he was just 14 at the time. Regardless, this clip is so influential that the pundit Dinesh D'Souza has posted it on his YouTube channel. Oh, in that same clip, Soros admitted he's an atheist. That's gonna trigger some folks. Later, influential folks like comedian Roseanne Barr...
Sorry?
I was just saying yes.
Well, I mean, is there like an actual documentary of what happened? Because it's just pretty much his word. But we do know for a fact the property was confiscated, and he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, that still doesn't look very good for him. So, just saying, it's his word against ours. But that is the fact of the matter. The property's gone, and he was there.
I also kind of find it interesting of every time he says that George Soros is accused of or connected to a Jewish conspiracy, that he doesn't spend like just 1 minute explaining what this conspiracy is, because then it just to me feels like a partial cop-out. Is that...
Go on.
No, to me it sounds like that Mr. Beat over here is making a partial cop-out by not even giving one example of what is the Jewish conspiracy theory that he's connected to.
Yeah, there is kind of a lacking of actual context of a lot of the criticisms. It's towards a very heavy leftist bias, and he's bringing up the Jewish things. I guess that he's trying to make a bias that most people that just criticisms are just right-wing anti-Semites.
Yeah, and totally not like there was a time period where Antifa was protesting and tried to hunt down George Soros because it turns out that he was driving 3 buses of them around in 2016. Oh wait, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, didn't he pay the Antifa people, his organization?
He paid for 3 buses to drive Antifa around and cause riots during the 2016 election. And then after the whole election was lost, Antifa was protesting because apparently they didn't get paid.
By George Soros?
They received no pay. The pay was just for the buses and travel, nothing else. So they just spent like weeks rioting, and they actually made no money from it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the other problem is, even let's say he didn't do any kinds of involvements of any sort of taking people's property. The guy funds communist propaganda stuff and creates tensions in the U.S., intentionally funding programs that are spreading more racial tensions and other kinds of tensions. The guy is, even if he, let's say he hasn't done anything in the sense during during with the Nazis and all that. Let's say he hasn't done any of that. The guy is a shit guy still.
Yeah, some time ago there was a YouTuber who was invited to the Open Society Foundation thing that they do all across the planet, where they go traveling around to help people. And the guy secretly recorded some things, and basically what's part of the whole thing is that they teach to like their help centers in the Middle East that the US is one of the worst places on the planet. And even when I'm just trying to find like a simple list, so this is a website, take it with several grains of salt if you want. Newsmax Independent American. I don't know how trustworthy this is. This is just one of the quick things because I needed to find a list. And here's one thing. So number 5, Soros's financial support of groups such as the ACLU and Human Rights Watch have helped promote Soros's contention that the US oppresses the rights of people here and abroad. And then it links to another thing. And I can say with a video, if I can find that video, of course, now, that is one thing.
Anyways, let's continue.
Okay, I'm not going to read this. I just clicked onto the article that they cite over here, and it's like a fucking novel. I'm not going to read it.
But Soros doesn't hide it that much. In fact, he's very outspoken. So yeah, basically, George Soros is just another billionaire trying to pull the puppet strings.
George Soros!
And let's be honest here, most of the time he comes up short. Most billionaires who try to solve all the world's problems struggle because it's not easy. There are always unintended consequences, and Soros has struggled to make himself look good. It's ironic.
I mean, what we just discussed, I don't know if he's saving the world, was his Antifa and communist dealings.
It's because he's evil. So,
yeah, and even if we take... Also, just keep in mind, I forgot which one of his sons... But there is like footage of his son saying, "Yeah, my father is a sociopath."
Yeah, and if I recall, the guy has admitted to saying that he has a god complex.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, when you basically have so much money that you can die a billionaire times a billion, basically. Kind of would be someone that gives the whole thing. And I'm trying to find the video on the whole thing right now, and all I'm getting is fucking mainstream news, of course, which then doesn't help.
Let's continue.
And even wrote books to try to explain how his intentions are always pure. But despite all that, today millions think he's the devil himself. Just ask my aunt.
Thank you so much.
This video is sponsored by
All right,
Brilliant.
I guess that's it. So, any other things we want to bring up about either the video or George Soros in general?
I mean, I think it's funny how oh yeah, by the way, this guy was clearly paid by George Soros because he's being pro George Soros, clearly. But yeah, no, I think what was funny is just him trying to do apologetics for George Soros, and he's like, yeah, the right doesn't like him, so I have to defend him, guys. He's okay, I guess. Please trust me.
Yeah, honestly, most people that do defend him are on the left.
Yes.
I mean, he does have friends like John McCain, but still, it's mostly.
I can give you his friend in the EU. I can't remember his name right now, but he's the one with the fucked up teeth.
He sounds British.
Who, Joe Soros?
No, the guy with the jacked up teeth. I'm trying to make fun of Brits.
Ah, okay. No. He's Belgium, so he's much worse. He's from a country that doesn't exist.
That's the thing. That's why us Americans.
No. Let me finish with what I was saying about the EU politician who is inside a book titled "Friends of Joe Soros," which was written by the Open Society Foundation. And this guy, he came into controversy a couple of years ago, or maybe more 2019, later 2019. So let's say more than a year ago at least. What did he say again that got to be so controversial? Oh, because he had a freak out that the EU doesn't have more control about European countries. And he also stated that the biggest problem in the EU is countries have their own sovereignty.
Oh, that's Guy Verhofstadt.
Yep, that's him. That's a guy who's titled a personal friend of Joe Soros in the EU.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. That also doesn't speak well. Very good to his character if he's friends with John McCain and whoever the fuck that guy is.
Guy Verhofstadt.
Yeah, Guy Verhofstadt.
Yeah, who
Maurice
wants
Mary
a
Louise Verhofstadt.
European empire?
Yeah. I can send you a decent enough image of him right now just for a joke in private chat.
Okay.
There we go, sent. If you need to see his face, there it is.
Oh, criminy.
I told you it was bad teeth.
God, that is the most.
And like I said, he's.
Well, he looks like he looks like a less attractive version of Austin Powers. So.
Yeah. Born 1953, Belgium. Political party. He's part of the Party of Freedom and Progress and the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats.
Ho ho. Huh. I say.
Any other kinds of comments we want to talk about him, things that he's done or may have done?
Well, what will he do next? Like, what's on his agenda? What's he trying to push?
I think he's probably trying to get rid of Putin.
Huh. Well, they have a lot in common, so I don't know why they're friends. Probably the nationalist question's the only different.
Well, that's the funny thing. A lot of Eastern Europe doesn't really have ideologies. They just either have corruption or nationalism as their ideology.
I've actually grown to kind of like Eastern Europe as of late, especially Poland. I seem to like them a lot. But the biggest problem is the sort of postmodernism that he's funding, because they have something that deconstructs a system, especially ours, just from the ground up, and then using SJWs to do it. Generally stuff that's very divisive, socialism, just everything that just contradicts it, and well, you get a very collapsing system. And so I could blame him a lot for the spreading of postmodernism, social justice ideology, so thanks, asshole.
I mean, to be fair, like I said, the main reason why the government in Hungary heavily focused on this whole institute/university in Hungary is because they started introducing and pushing for even other universities, basically saying, if you start teaching this, we'll give you a bunch of money. The whole thing of gender studies or anything that involves a professor with pink hair, terrible hygiene, and god-awful ideas.
If I remember, though, I think Viktor Orban is basically trying to essentially either keep George Soros out or keep his money out of Hungary.
Yeah, and as much as Viktor Orban is partially a dictator, because let's face it, that's how you run in an Eastern European country, realistically. Viktor Orban also knows George Soros quite well. Why? Because Viktor Orban used to be part of the Open Society Foundation to try to make some money, and they found some horrifying things about the whole organization.
Yep.
Can you explain those things that he found?
But he did keep the corruption, though.
What? What was Pedro saying?
Oh, he did keep the corruption
what
that he got while in the foundation.
Now,
I'm just trying to hear what Pedro is saying.
In the Open Society?
Sorry,
I'm trying to hear what Pedro is saying. You keep blocking the.
He said he kept the corruption.
Yes, but what did he say before he said he kept the corruption? That's what you interrupted, and then I guess he was trying to say it again, and then you interrupted again.
I don't know.
Sorry, they're socially retarded. They're still figuring things out.
Anyways, now what were the things that that the Hungarian president found?
Basically, it was the whole thing of pushing a whole narrative that, countries should not be their own. They should all work towards a collective. The kind of things we hear right now.
Once the Borg.
Yeah. And that
Anything
also included...
more specific?
Basically, the whole thing that I was taught for social studies in school, the whole thing of distribution of wealth from European countries to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Ew.
I mean, that's going to be incredibly contradicting to anybody that wants to form a state. So.
Mm-hmm.
And currently in any society in general. Well, I don't blame him, because it's just essentially leftist anarchy he's preaching.
Got a comment here from Val. Are you going to read it?
Would have been fun.
In a moment, I'm trying to find a clip. Wouldn't it would have been funny if he said the video was sponsored by the Open Society Foundation?
Yes?
Yeah, if it was, though, he wouldn't be saying anything inconvenient to George Soros.
Yeah, this just sounds like someone who's incompetent at making an argument.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just the thing. He just kind of just paints him out. He's just another Elon Musk.
Also, I'd like to point out something that the Open Society Foundation is connected to, along with Guy Verhofstadt.
Who?
The guy that I sent an image of, the one who is considered a personal friend of George Soros, the one who says that the biggest problem we have in the EU is member states have their own sovereignty.
I see.
Anyways, what George Soros and him are directly connected to is a wonderful concept called the United States of Europe.
Ew.
Which, to basically give you a summary, is a title copied from, the USA, but it's more like the Soviet Union in function. Thankfully, it hasn't gone over because the Brexit has caused some problems, and considering that it exit and PL exit are becoming never more present threat. So,
what's PL exit? Is that Poland?
Yes.
Honestly,
Poland,
I feel
Italy.
like Poland should just be a parasite to the EU for the foreseeable future until it dies.
That's basically what they're doing.
Yeah,
that's
I do think
basically
it's
what
funny.
most of the-
Yeah. I think it's funny how Hungary and Poland could just be like, yeah, we're gonna get all of the benefits while following none of your rules, and then the EU is just like, no, you can't do that. We'll unanimously vote to do something about that, and then they both say, oh well, I'll vote to say no, and then they're like, okay, we need to vote to change that, and then they say no.
Yeah, I know that is just shitty politics, but I completely support it because I hate the EU more.
Oh no, I think it's funny though.
Probably one of the funniest thing is I think Black Lives Matter. One of them wanted to kneel in solidarity, and the Polish team said no.
Yeah. There was also something retarded that happened, and I can't remember if it was Poland or Hungary itself in connection to Black Lives Matter, and it resulted so horribly. I'll try to find a clip of it because I know it's on video.
Yeah, there's also the funny thing where Hungary is basically like a pseudo dictatorship, but Poland actually has a decently strong democracy. They just vote for things the EU doesn't like, so the EU just says it's undemocratic.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like how what was it called? The Journalists Without Borders called the United States a flawed democracy once the U.S. voted Trump as president.
Oh my god, that is just an awful picture. I'm just searching BLM in Eastern Europe to try to find a clip. And then I just stumbled across this thumbnail. Okay, I'm gonna need. How do I copy a thumbnail picture? Okay. Okay, I'm just going to send this into Outlaw's Discord once I edit the picture down. So I cut out most of the useless stuff around it.
Anyways, regardless as to whether George Soros did anything unethical during World War II, and regardless as to whether he purposefully brought down countries with in shorting them or anything like that, the guy is a communist, and he has spread the whole thing of trying to destabilize. Hello?
Sorry.
Anyways,
I saw the picture of
the guy has done things in the sense of funding organizations and setting up organizations in which spread the complete propaganda of communism, and also trying to say that America is racist to its core.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless as to whether he's done anything in the sense of that is enormously unethical, he's done stuff that is absolutely shitty.
That's really putting it lightly. Good job.
What did I miss?
No, just saying he's done things that are absolutely shitty. I made a funding a wannabe communist terrorist group, basically, could be described with a little bit more colorful, but shitty.
Let's just call Soros a reverse Trump.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, any other final comments, or do we want to go on to another video, or is that it for today?
I don't know. I kind of got stuff I need to do. I'll probably make this my last one.
All right, then this will be it.
Just a moment. I'm trying to send y'all the. There we go. I sent y'all the image in general of Outlaw's Discord. I tagged y'all in it. I sent the image in your Discord.
Oh, that thing.
The thumbnail, and it's just like, I can't be the only one who thinks that's in partial bad taste, right?
Let me look at it.
What's in bad taste?
Is that supposed to be one of the concentration camps?
That's fucking Auschwitz. Something
happening with pizza. Anyways, I think that will be it for today. Let me just end the screen share. Alright, so I think we got all that done. So for those who are watching currently now or in the future, please go ahead and subscribe. Also follow me on Medium. I know I keep saying that, but seriously, follow me on Medium. I've only got like 28 people there. I want to grow my audience there. And I'm writing articles periodically, as I've said. And now a lot of my videos are going to be based off of some of my articles. So yes, go follow me there. I gave each of my articles 50 claps, yada, yada, yada. And of course, if you really like my content, please consider donating to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi. And if you want to get something with your, donations and sort of helping me, you can go to my merch store and buy one of the Castro Yoda t-shirts. Or mugs, I think.
Quit
You can
stealing
also-
my designs.
And of course, also consider following Neko. Sadly, he wasn't able to join with us today because he was out celebrating his boyfriend's birthday.
Aw.
So go follow Neko.
Everyone's
He
in a
does his
relationship except for me.
Go follow Neko. He does his geek culture content. You also can follow Putza. He does his content. There's, I believe, a link in the description as well for Putza's stuff. And of course, Commission Z Commander. He does his different tanks, models, stuff, you name it. Do all this, and we'll see y'all later.